you'd asked me a question earlier about the sort of connections that all Muslims have, and one of them I think is to the life of the Prophet Muhammad. And we all understand that life differently, but it's a life of hardship and struggle. Like, here's a man whose father dies before he's born. He's born in a tribal society in Arabia in the 7th century where who your father is quite important. I mean, forget about 7th century Arabia. Think about 21st century America. To be born without a father puts you at a significant disadvantage.
Absolutely.
There.
Yeah.
His mother dies when he's 6. He's raised by his grandfather, who dies when the boy is 8. At the age of 8, he's raised by his uncle. And so the hardship, what's it mean to never know your father? What's it mean to lose your mother at 6? What's it mean to be adopted by your uncle, when you're 8 years old? But then you grow up, you become a businessman, because that's what your uncle does. He's involved in the caravan trade just like your father was. And so that story of Muhammad, I think, resonates with Muslims precisely, A, because it's a human story, and B, it's a human story that deals with diversity, that deals with struggle. He's not born to the palace. He's not born with a silver spoon in his mouth. He's got to struggle. He's got to work. He's got to, come up to this. The challenges that he faces, because he preaches monotheism in a society that's polytheistic, very similar to Jesus. The kind of message that Jesus preaches isn't readily, quickly adapted. It takes generations for Christianity to become this, dominant tradition, the same way that it takes for Islam. But for me, that, to your question, is that for American Muslims, it's that model that is the American model. Because what's the American model? But you work hard, you succeed, you deal with triumph. To use a line from boxing and Ali, it's not whether you get knocked down. You're going to get knocked down as a boxer. You're going to get knocked down as an American. Do you get back up? Isn't that what defines you as an American? Do you get back up? Do you get back up? Do you keep fighting despite the struggles? You succeed. You look at, everyone and their dog talks about Steve Jobs as this great sort of visionary leader. Well, we forget that Steve got fired, by Apple, because folks weren't happy with the direction he was taking the company in. It's those kinds of
He needed
things.
a loan from Microsoft, actually.
But it's that kind of thing. We don't think about that idea. We sort of lionize the person and lionize the company, but don't pay attention to the history. But for me, that's that idea that to be a Muslim in many ways, is to be a good American. Like, you look at the fact that what was the Prophet Muhammad's sort of career before he was a prophet? He was a businessman. What's America but about business?
Yes.
And sort of the capitalist sort of element there. There is that sort of correlation with Islam precisely because of the Prophet Muhammad's background, that his father and his uncle worked in the caravan trade. They were business people. They bought and sold goods, and that was important. I think the danger, and this is a danger that all religious folks share with capitalism, isn't capitalism qua capitalism in and of itself. It's the excesses of it. Do you now try to acquire all the capital? Do you try to acquire all the money? Do you see it as a zero-sum game? Do you believe that you have an obligation to the poor? One of the pillars of Islam, zakat, literally means purification. We talk about it as charity. Wealth is not a bad thing for Muslims. To accumulate wealth is not a bad thing, because everything comes from God. But to hoard wealth, and there's a difference, maybe that's the difference between accumulating wealth and becoming wealthy, and hoarding it and wanting the money and only the money, and not seeing that connection to the people around you. So you have to, if you have wealth, you have to give some of that wealth to those who don't. You have an obligation to the people around you. That's no different, I think, than Christian notions, for example, of tithing.